Howdy y'all, it's G-Dog here, and I'm gonna talk about overstimulation and interest and denial of interest. So, recently I've been watching videos of other Aspies that have struggled with overstimulation problems and have struggled with likes and dislikes and negativity. I've talked about stigmas. I've talked about dating. I've talked about eccentricities, and I mean that was a little bit about likes and being eccentric and stuff like that. But let me explain more about overstimulation and negativity. Oftentimes, there's a lot of negativity that people view in somebody that is negative. So, for instance, let's talk about when an autistic person decides to reach out to a normal functioning person or neurotypical. We oftentimes try to relate. We try to show them interest of ours, but sometimes our interests are a little bit, as I explained before, eccentric. And the eccentricities kind of scare people off, right? So it's not necessarily us being negative. We just really want to relate or fit in or get to know somebody. And when we can't get to know somebody, we oftentimes feel hurt, you know. No, I get overstimulated in a lot of big crowds. Like, I'm more of a small crowd person. I definitely like to be behind the scenes. When I'm performing, I usually have to be behind a character instead of myself. It really helps me get out of that all eyes on me feel. Certain sounds really bother me. Certain textures really bother me. Like, I don't know, like sandy. Stuff that sandy really bothers me. Certain clothing textures, slickness on things really bothers me. Noises like sharp nails on a chalkboard, scratching sounds, tapping. When we hear sounds, it's like so much is going on at once. It overstimulates us, and then we have a meltdown. And it's not as bad as you think. Meltdowns are like a normal person's meltdown. We just have a little bit of more of extremes. We do flap, we do rock. Howdy, y'all. It's eccentric me. We do get a little bit overstimulated. And you see that in our gestures. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're trying to be awkward or different or stand out or asking to be a target. No. We're just a little bit overstimulated. It goes away just like everything else. It takes time, but it goes away. Once we get through that cycle, we have some space, we walk away, and we come back, and we realize it's gone away. Right. Now that that's out of the way, let's get back to overstimulation issues. So, there'll be times where I'll be in a theater and there'll be so much going on that it's really hard for me to deal with it. It could be the texture of the chair, it could be the way I'm seated, it could be like on a plane, it could happen on a plane. I just get a little bit overstimulated, and that's why I need an aisle seat or I need to be next to somebody I really care about that knows that they're not gonna be as judgmental when I'm having these moments. Somebody that is kind of like my comfort person. That doesn't mean I can't fight my battles. That doesn't mean I can't stand up for myself. It just means that I need a little bit more comfort or space at times. And that's what overstimulation is. Needing space and being away from pressures until I feel comfortable coming into that situation. Now, I was literally just minding my own business at a club incident that just happened. And this person kept coming after me, saying I was retarded, disabled, stupid, ignorant, whatever, to new people who haven't met me, especially visible disability type people. And it puzzles me how people with visible disabilities can discriminate against people with invisible disabilities. And I will probably cover that in another section, but it just was another case of I just needed space from the situation, so I sat, and those people decided to start targeting me, and then it turned into a discrimination case. I mean, there's times, I've already said, there are times where I just can't deal with the noise level. I can't deal with the stimulation. I can't deal with ignorant people who just aren't educated. So, for instance, somebody believes, well, you don't look autistic. You seem normal to me. Or, we don't like you being here. You need to leave. Let's get shady. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. As quoted before, I really don't care. You know, it's not somebody's place to tell me where I can be and where I can't be. They have no legal right to tell me to be somewhere or not. Overstimulation happens to us all. You know, there's certain things that people can deal with, and certain things that people just can't deal with. There's certain things that people draw the line at, and there's certain things that people don't draw the line at. That's just human nature to have boundaries and so much they can take. But let's talk about overstimulation, because it's like running a marathon, performing in the Olympics, and doing a ballet dance number in front of a crowd of thousands of people. So the fact that those things happen is a clear indication of how we feel. It's like being run over by a stampede for a brief amount of time until it passes. It's like having those moments of severe depression or severe mania, where it just overruns you, um, overruns you, overruns you. So it can be a little bit overstimulating in those situations. But it's like anything. It's just that pink elephant in the room that you sometimes have to deal with and know it's there, but you just kind of want to ignore it. Just like you do to autistic people. I mean, what? I mean, what? Did I say that? I did. Anyways, so we're no better than anybody else. We're just like you. Normal, wanting to fit in, have moments of overstimulation. And that's the whole point of my channel, is to explain about autism, disabilities, different types, discrimination of different types, and to talk about living life as a full functioning gay Aspie. And newsflash, I'm a homosexual. I just said that. But that's besides the point. What we're really talking about is living equal, living in a time where disabilities are just being noticed, or more openly noticed, and characters like Finding Dory or Dory from Finding Dory, and we have Quasimodo, which are two completely different types of disabilities. You have Quasimodo, who had an invisible disability, and Dory, who had an invisible disability. But it's just, we're talking about this because it's really important to explain where disabilities are and to diffuse the stigmas that come with certain things. That's pretty much why I write songs. That's what I do. My songs are pretty much to tell my story. My videos are to tell my story. My animations are to tell my story. I'm a storyteller. I'm an animator, storyteller, musician, storyteller. Because the best musicians, animators, whatnot, were storytellers. I mean, look at David Bowie. He told stories. Elton John tells stories. Lady Gaga tells stories, and she has video cinematography right in front of her videos. Madonna did it first. So it's just a bunch of storytellers out there, and I want to be a storyteller. And that's why I do the things I do, and overstimulation is a primary hurdle in my life next to stigmas and discrimination and being handicapped. There are so many different types of disabilities and so many different types of stigmas out there, that it really, we're just on the surface. We're still breaching the surface of disabilities, and it's not here to witch anybody. I'm not here to tell anybody that they're bad people. I'm just here to educate people on what it's like to be disabled and also to be in a minority group, at least from my experience. So I'm talking from my experiential life living. There is so much from different cultures that can talk about those cultural beliefs and disabilities. I can only talk about my personal belief and my disability and my personal culture. I mean, homosexuals, you already have them stigmatize themselves, but when you put that onto being gay and being autistic, you just have another hurdle to overcome. It's like stacks hurdles, right? So a lot of people don't notice that, minorities hurt each other from the inside out. I mean, you have black on black crime, you have Latino on Latino gang crimes, you have gay on gay crime, you have girl on girl crime. That's not a minority, but you get the picture, right? You get the picture that these people fight within their own selves. So, and that's probably going to continue to happen for a long time. But that's why we have these educational videos and those people who are trying to educate you, like myself, on the certain stuff that really needs to change or should be changing to better our community. Alright, so let's talk about overstimulation and negativity's continued. So let's say, for example, there's a kid who is in a theater or is in your class and he gets a little overstimulated by all the stares and they're talking and stuff like that. They have a little bit of a meltdown, but that doesn't mean they're terrible people. No, that doesn't mean that they're unable to fulfill their potential. No, what that just means is that they're a little bit more slower to cope, but that doesn't mean they're unable to. Like for me, for instance, I had those moments when I was younger, but I would say my harshest teachers were my bullies. Um, because they pushed me to be strong. And there's a lot of times where, they'll be teasing you or putting you down or putting the kid down. And the kid has to learn how to self-soothe. And oftentimes it's much harder on the autistic kid than it is to the peers. Because most of the time the autistic kid gets more worked up because he's worried about his peers judging him than the situation is. And so sometimes getting a reality check can help, but you wait until after the peak of the moment, because once somebody reaches that peak, it's hard to come down from that peak until they do deep breathing exercises. Now, not to say that everybody is the same or different, because every autistic person functions differently. Some get overstimulated, as I said before, by textures, some by noise, some by taste, some by sight or sun. Sometimes I get overstimulated by the sun. It's a little too bright. It kind of gets blinding, and it's hard for me to adjust my eyes. Plus, I don't even like being in the sun. I'm a ginger. But that being said, it's much harder on us than it is to the peers or the parents or whatever. I'm not saying it's not hard, and I won't tell any parent or anybody who has an autistic loved one it isn't hard, because that's not true. The truth is, though, the person experiencing it probably feels it twice as bad as the loved one that is witnessing it. And it's a lot of loved ones don't see it as, there's a lot of organizations that say it's a curse on the family, say it's a burden on the family, a financial burden. And sometimes it can be, but it's not necessarily, because those family members love their children unconditionally. That their children are their children, and they'll do anything to make them feel happy or fit in or be loved or cared for or reach their true potential, right? So when somebody reaches their true potential, they will pretty much succeed in life. But I mean, it varies between the person with the disability and their ability to cognitively cope with the world. I'm a very high functioning Aspie, and I have a little bit more experience personally for myself to cope with hardships, and I have gotten a lot of emotional strength training from past experiences to be able to withstand a lot of blows and to form this shield of empowerment around me that blocks me from a lot of the negativity that is projected on me from others, which brings me into negativity. So projection is the number one thing. Projecting somebody's negativity onto another person because that person feels that you're negative and they're the more positive one, despite you're making efforts to show them personal bits of you, and they're not necessarily acknowledging that.
And that's the whole negativity and the whole principle of it, right? You say that we're negative, yet you treat us like we're not somebody, and we're positive. We're positive people. Um, we just go through a lot more, and our experiences are real, right? Your experiences are real to you, and our experiences are real to us. But each person copes differently. Some deny it and project onto other people, and some need to internalize it and deal with it. I'm a person that internalizes my own uh, feelings, and oftentimes I deal with it. And when I need space, or I have those moments where I need space, the me time, the therapeutic um, overstimulation diffuser, oftentimes I get looked at. Oftentimes I get looked at like I am some kind of drama queen, or I'm like gasoline and I ignite the fire. Um, that's oftentimes a stereotype. We are not trying to stimulate an issue. Um, I mean, I'm not guilty of starting stuff. I am just as guilty as somebody else for saying something on Facebook I shouldn't have, or um, posting a lot of negativity that gives a negative perception of me. But when somebody goes through something so much in their life, when they experience hardship after 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 hardship, it just gets really draining on the psychological aspects of that person. That person just doesn't see a lot of positivity, because that person, all he has seen in his life is negativity. So yes, that person develops, or abuse survivors, or people who survive a lot of hardship, form this personal relationship with negativity, or not setting themselves up to be excited, because those people just, that's all they experience is hardships. So when one person projects their own negativity onto another entity, or scapegoats their problems onto somebody else, it oftentimes creates a bigger issue than it was in the first place. Now, again, I'll go back to that bar incident. Somebody projected their negativity onto me. When I started standing up for myself and fighting for my rights, it became a, well, he said this and he's going after us and it's his fault kind of thing. And he's just a negative person, stay away from him. Or if that person feels suicidal, we should blame him for being suicidal and that he has his own personal issues. You're right. I do have my own personal issues, as you do. And you're reflecting your negativity onto me, so you're just being the same exact thing that you're accusing me of. And you're being much more of a bully than I am. If you're pushing me to the point, or if people are trying to push me to the point of killing myself to make themselves feel better, that's not negativity on me. That's negativity on that person. Now, it's a little different situation about a lover relationship, because sometimes lovers don't have a choice to deal with their own partner's actions. If their own partner decides to, off themselves, it's not the fault of the person that was with them. And I mean, it's a situational issue, right? So the two things outweigh are two different situations. Bullies can be responsible for causing somebody to kill themselves if the bullying is a result of them killing themselves from their actions. A love relationship, if the person is so sad being there that they off themselves, and the lover tried everything in their power to make them happy, that's not the fault of the lover. Now, if it was a bullying thing or an abuse situation, that would be a different thing. But negativity comes in so many forms. So does aggression. You can be directly aggressive or passive aggressive. Oftentimes, passive aggressive people will try to play other ways or try to manipulate you other ways through manipulation or through like comments under the breath or double meaning statements, where a direct aggressive person will just tell you to your face. Now, I've always been honest. I will tell somebody to their face if I like them or not. But I've been practicing being nicer to people, and I'm not innocent when it comes to being too bluntly honest or too hurtful. I mean, I can be hurtful sometimes, and I'm trying not to be, and that's something I'm correcting. But we are human beings. Now, projecting your negativity onto an entity in order to make yourself feel better, look like a saint, is only it's a fool's course. It's a fool's course because every time you try to project water break. Because every time you try to project something onto somebody, it oftentimes it's more of a character flaw of yourself than that person. Now, if that person was being outwardly hostile to you and they were trying to ruin your life, like for instance, they were slamming on your door, trying to break into your door or hurt you, that's a completely different situation. Put your paws out. Put your paws out, G-Dog. Stay positive. Stay positive.